Here are stories that drive you. Hi, I'm Karan Kashiappa. This is AutoStory by YourStory, and you're watching AutoStory Slipstream, where you and I will share conversations, reviews, and all there is on automobiles. Fast wheels, the latest trends in the industry, product reviews, and basically share the draft of the industry together. As a keen enthusiast myself, I will take you on a journey of speed, thrill, and discovery. Today we are having a conversation with two motorcycle enthusiasts, John Kuruvilla and Gautam Khot, who just returned to us after an epic and adventurous ride around India and covering a distance of 13,500 kilometers on two EV motorcycles. Hi John, hi Gautam.
Hi, Karan.
First of all, thank you for coming in. I would like you to introduce yourself first to our audience.
Thank you, Karan. Thank you, YourStory, for having us. Epic is the right word. I've got 35 plus years of experience in the corporate world, and the last 10 years, I've been an active mentor, investor, working very, very closely with startup founders in every vertical. The past 6 years, I helped conceptualize and set up Asia's first PropTech accelerator, Brigade Reap, which mentors young founders addressing challenges in the real estate and construction space. Thank you for having me.
And Gautam?
Thanks again, Karan, for having me here. And it's a great opportunity for me to talk about, the project. But before that, I have almost 30 years of experience in technology. I work with John at Brigade Reap as well. I'm the tech and product mentor there. I have multiple patents in the work that I've done in the past in various startups in India and in the US. I'm heavily into wildlife photography, and I believe I brew a mean beer.
You both have been riding superbikes. And how did that journey start of motorcycling?
So I've been an avid motorcyclist from the age of 14. When I got married, it was the wife for the motorcycle, so I chose the wife, fortunately for me. But in 2015, when I was in Bombay, I decided to pursue that passion, got permission from head office, and I actually bought my first superbike, which was the Triumph T100. Rode that for a couple of years, and in 2017 decided to do something crazy and decided to equip myself both body and mind, and then picked up a Versys 1000, which is a mean machine to ride, and that's the motorcycle that I thought I would journey garlanding India when we thought of this ride.
So yeah, I have had a similar kind of a beginning. The first motorcycle that I ever owned was my first bike ever, which is the Triumph T120 that I ride, which I bought in 2016. I believe it's the first T120 that Triumph sold in India, by the way. And I had no prior experience with motorcycling before that, but it was something, I mean, maybe the middle-aged blues or whatever they call it, but for me, it was extremely liberating. There's a lot of, long miles that I've put into the belt because of that. And more importantly, it has actually given me access to a lot of, the current work that I do. I met John on a bike ride, right? I've made friends that have actually shaped the last 5 years in ways that I had not imagined. Motorcycling has been one of the most liberating hobbies that I've cultivated that has affected my life in more ways than one.
I completely understand with you. How did you both come up with this whole journey on two EV motorbikes, and you covered the whole of India, the Bharatmala?
So it started in 2017 when I got bored of the run-of-the-mill life in the corporate world, and I said, let me do something exciting on a motorcycle, because like Gautam said, motorcycling is now a passion. It's zen for me. And I actually decided on garlanding India. It was supposed to be a solo joyride. But like Gautam said, we both worked together and we discussed, and he said, listen, why don't we do it together? And that's how we conceptualized this journey. It was a joyride garlanding India, and that was it at that moment.
That was it. It's like Karma Badta Gaya. We started talking to some of our startups, got wind of it. Pothole Raja was in the office, one of those days, and he overheard us talking about it, and he said, "Aap pura Bharat ghum rahe ho, main bhi aunga."
That's Saurabh.
That's Saurabh from Pothole Raja, and we both looked at it. Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, see, we were yet not very, we were committed, but we had not really planned it yet, and And that's when, the EV thing was not even in the back of our minds at that time, right? That came much later. As we started talking about this idea to our friends. I think somebody got in touch with John about, why don't you, consider doing this on electric motorcycles? And John's like, and we had no clue, right? And one thing leads to another. Aura gets in touch with John, and lo and behold, it's like 7, 8 companies that got together to take this off the ground.
But before that, Karan, the interesting insight was, we've now mentored over 60 startups. And we realized that many of our promising startups came from small towns like Udaipur, Indore, Hubli, Dharwad, Gorakhpur. And Gautam and I said, before the EV story, we said, why don't we do one thing? Why don't we add another layer to this journey on superbikes? Let's stop at 20, 30 colleges and actually encourage and inspire students to start up and become job creators. So the genesis was Joyride, single to duo. Pothole Raja joined, said, I want to get involved. So that made 3 of us. And then we said, let's create a purpose. So Joyride became purposeful. We said, let's, encourage and inspire students with our stories. And the 4th leg was, we're mentoring a startup called Charger. He said, listen, why don't we do something in EV? And then a mutual friend of ours introduced Aura and me. Aura got in, and then Spirit got in. So it then became the world's first electric EV ecosystem coming together. And we then said, we knew it's going to be far more challenging because on the bikes that we have, we can do 120, 130 kilometers an hour. On these bikes, swapping, we didn't know what we were getting into, okay? But the joy of doing what we were, the passion of making this change, I think got us all together. And that's when we started putting the entire fundamentals, the foundation for this ride. Around September of 2021 is when this whole ride came together.
So that would be my next question. What was the preparation which went through on the EV bikes, because it was never tested, the whole of India, and how the charging would happen, how the team would get together and do all this, plus how Pothole Raja would fill the whole potholes all over India, and
So I'll tell you how it all started. It started with route planning. So Gautam and I sat, pored over the maps of India. Google came in very, very handy. How many kilometers a day, where to do pit stops. So that was the first planning. How many days will it take? And we realized that at an average speed of 60 kilometers an hour, we would ride about 300 kilometers a day. We would take about 40 days. We put in, a day of rest every 7, 8 days. So total ride came to about 54 days. However, this was the easy part. The more difficult part was there were 7 collaborators. There was us at Brigade Reap. There was Pothole Raja, filling potholes. There was Charger doing setting up charging stations. There was Aura Energy with the 2 Mantis motorcycles. There was Spirit. There was a legal team, Spicewood, because we needed a lot of legal work. And then, of course, the 7th was YourStory, who was going to be the media partner for this. So this was working with different startups, different DNAs, different personalities, different needs, different interests. And that was the challenge.
You have to understand that there were a lot of leaps that we were making. None of this was ever done before, right? Yeah, sure, people had planned rides on regular motorcycles or even their, human-powered cycles, etc. But EVs are a different beast altogether that we had no precedent to kind of go reference. So we had to go with the range that Aura had basically shared with us about how much can this bike do in one charge, how much time will it take for you to cover that distance, and what is the total distance that you can safely cover in a day's ride. And that was our biggest kind of a anchor point that we basically did this whole bit of planning on, right? It was around setting up charging stations at night. We realized that, for, let's say, to travel a max distance of 480 kilometers, you needed to have 4 battery packs per motorcycle, right? Which means 8 of them had to be carried because there were 2 motorcycles, which means we needed to have charging capacity wherever we are staying for that night, for 54 nights. We needed to be able to charge 8 sets of batteries, 8 into 6, right? Batteries on a daily basis. Now, all this was logistics that had to be taken care of much before we even left Bangalore. hotel reservations had to be made. They had to be educated upon the fact that we're going to be requiring this amount of charging on a daily basis. What kind of electric power were we going to be drawing? Who is going to pay for it, right? I mean, sponsorships came later, but initially it was about how much is this going to cost us, right? So a lot of that basically went into that. There was, since we were going to carry batteries, obviously our backpacks are not large enough to carry 480 kgs of,
One set.
right? Now, so we needed vehicles, we needed support vehicles. So we had a plan for 2 support vehicles, 1 pilot and 1 chase. And then we're going to walk you guys through how all that planning was actually right down to the minutest level of detail. Whether it worked or not is something else.
But budgeting was a key point because this was costing us, seriously large chunks of money. And 6 startups and the 2 of us, not a single soul came forward to sponsor. Yes, we had the likes of Kivraj, who said they'd give us a vehicle. We had the likes of, we need to gear up because you're riding through -2 degrees centigrade to 42 degrees centigrade. We had 6K IM actually giving us gear. Then we had to do hotel planning. We then got hotels, started with Avatar, and then we got Avatar, we got Ginger, we got Lemon Tree, we got Le Pension, we got Sonnet, JW Marriott. And suddenly we realized that, our journey, and then we had to talk to colleges. Sure. And COVID played a damper because colleges said, listen, we can't give you, people are not coming to colleges. And this was, our planning started in September 2021. By January 26th, 27th, we only had 1 college, which was 2 colleges. We had XLRI in Jamshedpur and IIM Udaipur. And surprise of surprises, none of these colleges actually featured in the final list. So the planning was to the minutest, to what time we start riding, what time we stop, how long do we stop, what time is breakfast, what time do we swap batteries, where do we swap batteries, what time do we break for lunch, what time do we reach our destination. So planning was thorough like any startup in our country or elsewhere.
So along the journey, as you said, that you met a lot of students and colleges came up on board to do this. So can you tell us the experience and how the students are in all these towns and cities right now? What do you feel about
Karan, the universe opened up and suddenly people started helping us. People unknown to us started helping us connecting to colleges. And what amazed us was the energy in the smaller towns of India, whether it's Mangalore, whether it's Kannur, whether it's Visakhapatnam, Jamshedpur, Guwahati, Gorakhpur, Dehradun, Jalandhar, Udaipur, Pune. We must have engaged with over 6,000 students in these colleges. And they were delighted to have access to people like us and to the mentors from the EV ecosystem. And surprises, the ideas in the smaller towns, which are till now not corrupted by the aspirations that have hit the big cities from the valuation perspective, genuine ideas, genuine product stories, genuine challenges, genuine challenges is all that we saw. I mean, we can share ideas, and not only that, we met entrepreneurs. I'll give you a case in point of a government employee in a small town called Kumbakonam near a dam. He was earning 15,000 rupees a month in a government job, safe job, and then realized that every day dozens of buses would come and stop at the dam, and people would get out, and it's 39, 40 degrees. So he actually gave up his government job and set up a roadside stall selling a cooling beverage, which is found in Tamil Nadu. And he's called Soda Shankar. He now does 6,000 rupees a day. We met a guy in Patukote, working for another chai owner, again making 15,000, 16,000 rupees, working from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m., earning 15,000, 16,000. His wife egged him, lent him her jewelry, set up a chai shop of his own. He makes 3,000 rupees a day. And these are the stories of Bharat.
Yeah, I mean, so Jamshedpur was special because that was the first school that we stopped at. We've been stopping at a lot of colleges, but here was a higher secondary school that we stopped at. And guess what? There were a couple of student-run initiatives that, both these teams were really, really keen on talking to us about what they were doing. And here was this kid from class 10 who had created a complete facial recognition system for the school to automate the attendance for his own school, right? Now, obviously, he's not, he's not old enough to understand the current market, what's the market size, whether something like this exists or not. But he realized that my school doesn't have anything like it. Why don't I go ahead and build it? And he's actually built something tangible that actually looked like a pretty cool thing, and he might actually be able to build a sustainable business out of it. Who knows, right? And he came in with questions about how to scale his business, whether he should be worried about failure, at what point should he pull back, do you have off days in startups at all? Genuine questions that you otherwise expect from really mature startups, but don't get those questions typically. But these were kids with no baggage and no fear, and that is a trend that I think we noticed everywhere that we interacted with the student. The engagement was phenomenal. The access is what I think everybody worries about in these colleges to world-class resources. Everybody says funding, but in our opinion at REAP, which is well established, we discourage people from chasing funding. It is about how do you kind of talk to your peers in the industry, how do you get access to good mentorship when you need it, answers to the questions that are vexing you on a given day that is holding your venture back from blossoming into something much larger.
I'll give you another example of a 14-year-old kid in 9th standard in Calcutta. When he saw that we were on this ride, he reached out and said, listen, can I please meet you all in Calcutta? And we met him in this forum because Techno India had set up a large startup initiative and got us to address the gathering there. 14-year-old kid, Karan, 14-year-old kid, Devang. He realized that in the building that he lives in, there are hundreds of help who come into work, and they're working to provide their kids education, but nobody wants to lend them money for their kids' education, and they were borrowing money from the market at 6 to 8% per month. So he borrowed 10,000 rupees from his uncle, and he started lending money to these people. Okay, that 10,000 rupees now swelled to 1 lakh. And I asked him a question, 9th standard, I said, Devang, what's your NPA? He said, uncle, there's no NPA because, I said, how? Everybody pays you? He said, yeah, I give only to women, and women are worried about the child's education, they'll pay me back. And uncle, some of them, when they say, I'll pay you, when I start crying, they give me the money back. Now, that's the resilience of a kid. He had questions on RBI regulations, on, what should he do? How can he scale the business? We had another guy who runs a martial arts class, and he's only got one outlet. And he asked us, what can we do to scale it? We met girls in Bhavnagar, in Gyanamanjari College. Lot of questions on hygiene for women. And they were surprised they could talk to men about that, because in their homes, they will never talk to their, and one girl told me, sir, it's such a pleasure to talk to somebody like you, because at home we can't talk to them and nobody understands business. And I said, you guys are Gujaratis, you have business in your blood. They said, but can we now start reaching out to people like you? And I think the both of us were delighted that we opened minds and doors for youngsters in remote places to access people like us.
So now that we have spoken about how the students have done, and what they are doing, and so encouraging for us as well, I would like to ask you, how's the whole cultural scene in the whole of India? You maybe have met 1 million people right now, and how is the food, and what were the conditions, and how were the road conditions and everything? The temperatures.
Sure. I mean, see, like I said, the leaps that we made, right? They were like literal leaps that we had to make in many places. I think we touched 23 states. And so, the good thing, I'll start with the good stuff, right? The national highway system in India, for the most part, is as good as it can get anywhere in the world now. The major highways are just beautiful, including in states that traditionally, we all thought were going to be really, really nightmarish to, travel in, right? Even in the Northeast, which we were dreading when we started, the roads were fantastic, but where they were bad, they were really, really bad, right? So from a road conditions perspective, I think things are way better than what we expected them to be. But obviously, there's a lot of scope for improvement, and I'm sure there's a lot of attention that is being paid to that from the government's perspective. But from a cultural perspective, right, I think I found some common strands in the large, diverse population that basically constitutes this beautiful country. And that was hospitality, the largeness of heart. Wherever we went, it was like, okay, what are you guys doing? What are these old fogies doing, right? And okay, you're riding all around the country. Okay, sit with us, have breakfast with us. Tea is on us. They paid for our bills, right? We've had hotels that we had reserved at that just basically said, okay, we're not going to charge you anything. This stay is on us, because we've never really interacted with such a large team that has come together to do things at the scale that you've done that. Food was, it just kind of changed every 100 kilometers. Unfortunately, a lot of the food that we consumed were on the highways, but even there, the diversity is staggering, absolutely staggering. If there is fafda and jalebi in Gujarat that you have at 7 a.m. for breakfast, right? You go to Dimapur in Nagaland, there is pork everywhere. It's a meat lover's paradise, right? Or, in the south, the idli and the dosa, we all live in Bangalore, so we appreciate that anyway. But the different types of dosas that we ate was also an eye-opener for me, personally, right? So there is, while we are very diverse, I think there's a lot of commonality in the Indian population, which is about, the Atiti Devo Bhava that we all have heard over and over again, is actually something that we saw in practice.
Absolutely. And, I'll give you a classic example. So, in this 13,500 kilometer journey, one of our biggest challenges was because we were riding on red number plates. And instantly, I'll talk about how I had to move to my super bike later. We got stopped by cops only twice. Once in Kerala and once in Punjab. Okay? And the RTO official who flagged us down in Kerala actually came up and he saw the red number plate. He said, "What are you doing? Get off your bike, remove your helmet." Very stern. We removed the helmets. He saw a respectable looking gentleman.
Respectable.
Respectable.
Both are kind of dicey here.
And he said, "What are you doing?" So I told him what we are doing. He said, "Did you stop? Which other college you stopped in?" So fortunately for us, we stopped at GEC Kannur, where Byju's come from. And the college had put out a press release which had come that morning in the newspaper in Malayalam Manama. So we showed it to him. So he said, "Where is your partner?" I said, "He's coming." So when he saw both of us, he said, "This is very, very good that you're doing. Please go ahead." And Karan, he called all the cops on his radio up to Trivandrum. Nobody stopped us.
And just to add, he actually said, "Okay, show me all the paperwork that you have. Let me look at it so that you don't have a problem anywhere in India."
Yeah.
Do you have? He gave us a checklist
19, yeah.
because of the fact that we were riding on TC plates, and he's like, "Okay, you got this. There was one form that was missing that Ora immediately fixed within a matter of hours, and our paperwork was intact. We were not scared. We were not scared anyway, but we didn't have that trepidation in our minds that we're going to be stopped by the RTO in some random state and they're going to harass us. Yeah. That never happened.
And in Trivandrum, which is the last point of Kerala before we hit Kanyakumari, a cop car waved us down. They said, "We heard about you. How much range does it give?" So, kitna deti hai? This was a standard question everywhere. Then we hit Punjab. And our vehicle, which was the Isuzu, which was carrying our luggage and our spares, they stopped it. And Gautam is a guitarist, our videographer is a guitarist.
No. So what happens is, what is all this? What are you guys carrying? And this Isuzu has a little bit of a camo decal all around. So it's a pretty impressive looking vehicle. So he's like, "Get out, all of you." I mean, there was just two of them in the car at that time. And then they spot the guitar, right? So there are these four Sardars. Ye kya hai? So Karthik, who is a Tamilian from Bangalore, very, very soft-spoken guy, says, "Sir, that is my guitar." And so, "Nikal, baja," right? So Karthik starts playing some Tamil songs with a Punjabi audience in khaki, appreciating his music. I think they appreciated it anyway. So everywhere, we were stopped by cops in Jammu and Kashmir at the border, but not because, they wanted to harass us. Like, "What are you guys doing? Red number plates."
They were curious.
Yeah, they were curious. We got stopped in Manipur and extremely friendly cops, it was just, amazing experience.
So I from this, I sincerely believe that India is today what I call a biker's paradise. Great hospitality, very good roads. Forget what happens within Bangalore. I mean, it's It's chaotic, but on the highways, people are friendly, roadside people are friendly, stalls are friendly, the cops are friendly, especially if you're on a purpose. So that's what I realized, if you are on a purpose, the world will come to support you.
Actually, I feel that everyone should go take 1 month off and just do the whole Bharatmala.
It's
So
mind-boggling.
they get to know a lot of culture and people and everything. On this whole journey now, there might have been quite a lot of problems, I think. So could you give us some of the stories which were problematic, where you felt that, okay, fine, the EVs could improve, or your biking experience on how things went problematic?
So I think the single most important point of success or failure for us was charging stations. Okay. And while we had set up a fairly robust network, and Charger had done a great job doing that, we started failing early on because of bad roads, because of weather conditions, because of a lot of unknowns that were coming us every day. We were reaching many of the destinations at 10 p.m., 11 p.m., and wherever charging stations were set up, the guys had disappeared. A. B is wherever charging stations were set up, the quality of power was not good. So we realized that charging was the single point of failure for us. So Karan, Jugaad is in our Indian DNA. So we were charging batteries in bathrooms, in bedrooms, in cafeterias, in canteens, in gyms. We were charging battery packs in automotive showrooms. We once ran out of charge, and we stopped at a welding shop in rural Tamil Nadu, and we need 15 kVA power. We drew power from a welding machine to charge our batteries, and we were standing on the road for 4 or 5 hours. So this was the toughest challenge for us, but we overcame it very, very early on. And how do we do this? So like we said, both of us started on 2 EVs, but we realized because of budget constraints, we did not take a pilot on a chase vehicle initially. So one vehicle was not good enough for us to take drained batteries ahead, set it up for charging, and make sure that by the time the other battery packs and the bikes came in, they were ready for charging. So in Chennai, we took a decision that I will fly in, I will bring in my bike into Chennai, and I would ride as a pilot ahead of the pack, strapping a charging station of chargers on my back, on the back of my vehicle. I used to ride 2-3 hours ahead of the pack, and by the time the crew joined us, which is 2 bikes and the completely drained battery packs in the Isuzu, the charging station was set up. So we had a clean run from here on to Calcutta, and from Calcutta, we got another charging company actually coming and working with us.
I mean, one of the other things was there was this major pivot that we did, but there were micro pivots that were necessary on a daily basis. Like when we said we planned for riding a certain number of hours every day, actually we probably erred on the side of underestimating that effort. Where we thought we'd be riding for 6 hours to 7 hours on a daily basis, we ended up riding 10, 12, 13, sometimes 14 hours, right? And that became a norm. I mean, that is the limitation of the speed that we were riding at, because we didn't want to exhaust our batteries, etc. And very rapidly we realized that, okay, we're not going to be riding for 6 hours, we're going to be riding for at least 8 to 9 hours on an average on a daily basis. And that changes a lot of dynamics downstream about the work that we were doing in our off period during the day. How much time am I going to need, to start in the morning? Instead of a 6 a.m. start, we probably needed to start at 4:30 a.m. to kind of reach while there was still light outside, right? And stuff like that. So there was, a lot of those changes that happened on a daily basis for challenges that came up on a daily basis. We had some unforeseen events, tragedies that unfolded. The biggest problem that we encountered was in Manali, where the driver of our support vehicle actually had a heart attack, right? Nobody plans for it, right? 3 a.m. in the morning, the poor guy is knocking on our doors, and he managed to wake Saurabh of Pothole Raja up. Saurabh immediately decides to take him to a hospital that was
the best hospital in Manali,
probably 5 minutes away from the hotel that we were staying at, which was the Lemon Tree, and calls us at 5 saying, Shiva has actually he's had a heart attack, a minor heart attack. So okay, what do we do now? And the doctor's like, this guy has to be evacuated from here, get him back to Shimla or Chandigarh, which are both 7 to 8 hours away by road, right? And that is when, Jor and Saurabh were at the hospital together. They managed to get Shiva out on a helicopter after various attempts at getting him onto an Air India flight, did not fructify, on a helicopter to Chandigarh, from where he was taken to Fortis immediately. And guess what? He has had 80% blockage.
In 2 arteries.
And he needed to have stents put in immediately, right? So it ended well, thankfully. Shiva survives, and he's smiling and back to his healthy self now. But that was a major adjustment, because now we are left without a driver, and Saurabh has had to basically take over the car from the rental company and drive the rest of the way. The other unforeseen problem actually happened on day 1 when we started, okay, where there was a mechanic that Spirit had basically provisioned, who was trained with the Aura staff for almost a month to maintain the 2 mantises that were going to be ridden, right? His luggage was loaded into the Isuzu the night before at 8 p.m. And he is good to go. And we get a call at 10 from the Spirit founder saying, there's a problem. And this guy that was slated to travel with you cannot anymore, because there is somebody in his family had COVID, his immediate family. And we don't have anybody, but don't worry, we'll manage. And so we show up at our starting point at 5 a.m. in the morning, and there is a new guy called Satyajit Patil, who had arrived in Bangalore for some other work for Spirit, with a bag which probably contained clothes for 3 days. And he was told, okay, you're going on Bharat Mala for the next 2 months. And this guy was a gem,
He was the lifeline.
He basically, we had met him, we'd never met him before. We met him at 5 a.m. at the starting point. And he took over the charging duties, swapping duties, maintenance, and it was a major kind of a hiccup even before we started, but something that we all immediately adjusted. And kudos to Spirit and to Satyajit, of course, part of Spirit team, to basically just rise up to the occasion and make the most of it.
And he was the lifeline for this entire journey. And, in 40 degrees centigrade on the highway, swapping. In fact, some of the lessons, our first swap took us an hour. By that time, we had ridden about 1,000 kilometers.
7 minutes.
7 minutes, we were swapping. And that's the beauty of a team coming together on the ground and making things happen. So these were then, we were eating on the road. We were drinking on the road. When I say drinking, water on the road, tea on the road. In the Northeast, 4 of us came down with severe food poisoning. Severe food poisoning. We couldn't get on the bike, and if we did, we were scared to get off the bike. It was so bad. But and to Gautam's point, in Manali also, and in Guwahati also, we said, how are we going to continue? But the objective, the goal that we had, let's break the world record. Students are waiting for us. The purpose of doing what we set out to do kept us going. So Gautam and I sat and we said, Gautam, you continue on the ride. Saurabh and I will manage the patient in Manali. In Guwahati, we called our homes. We were eating more medicines than food. But here we are. So a lot of challenges. We used to crave for 2 things only: clean bathrooms, clean sheets. In many hotels in the smaller towns of India, we were given rooms which didn't have locks to the door. And bathrooms were not clean, no hot water. You knock on the door, you can hear the other guy. But because we were so, getting up at 4:30 in the morning, riding at 5, some days we started riding at 4:30, finishing at 2:30, then Gautam and I would get onto our calls because we were mentoring startups here in Bangalore and Abu Dhabi, managing all that, finishing by 7:30, making sure before we go to sleep, everything's set up. It was just the goal and the focus and a great quality teamwork on the ground that kept us going.
So now that you've spoken about how the whole trip has taken toll on body, mind, and on the bikes as well, and all the problems, I would like to ask you what were the highlights basically? What were the memories? What you got back to Bangalore right now?
So I'll talk of our favorite one where Google let us down very badly. So Google Maps in Orissa showed us a shortcut which was shorter by 40 kilometers. And riding in the heat, 40 kilometers is, 1 hour or half an hour of riding. And we took the shortcut, and here we come to a water's edge. And where we have to go is 5 kilometers on the other side. And we have this huge Porthole Raja truck. We have an Isuzu truck. We have we have 2 EV motorcycles. And then this guy walks up to us and says, listen, I will ferry your motorcycle. We said, ferry motorcycle? What about the truck? We'll take the truck also. Isuzu, we'll take that also. So for 45 minutes, we were 3 motorcycles on a boat traveling to the other side, and a big ferry carrying the huge Porthole Raja truck and the Isuzu. And we were literally riding into the sunset. That was a phenomenal memory, and we saw some lovely birds in the region. That was a great memory for me.
Yeah, I mean, birds, I'm a committed birder, and I've made a mental checklist of all the places that I want to return to. I, in fact, managed to click a few interesting pictures of what we call lifers in our birding dictionary. But the lasting memory for me, obviously the people, I'd mentioned that earlier, the food as well, but crossing the mighty rivers in India, right? I mean, it started with Kaveri, Krishna, Mahanadi, Ganga, Yamuna, Brahmaputra, Satluj, Bias. And you've read all about it as you're growing up in your geography textbooks, and then you see the expanse of the Ganga in Farakka, let's say, right? And it just boggles the mind. Brahmaputra in Guwahati is, if you've never seen it before, it is a site that just boggles the mind, It's massive. And that, to me, defined the diversity in this country, right? It's like, you've heard all about it, you read all about it in, in your newspapers or news articles or whatever, but to actually go witness and eat the food that those people are eating, and it's all delicious, by the way.
And people are happy, Gautam. I mean, we've interacted with everybody. There is a general happiness in the smaller towns of India. And that is contagious. We were sweating in 40 degrees, but the excitement of going to a college, interacting with students, and they were waiting for you. Every time we stopped the motorcycles, people were thronging. And the interesting part, Karan, the knowledge of people of EVs in the smaller towns of India is far more than a Bangalore. Because EVs have been there in tuk-tuks for the past 8-9 years. They know battery swapping, they know range, they know lead acid batteries, they know
the economics.
They know the economics. So that was fascinating. We were riding from Guwahati to Gorakhpur, and we stopped in a place called Forbes Ganj, Forbes Ganj. But in that area, it's called Farbes Ganj. And we came upon this oasis of a hotel, beautiful. And we met the owner, and he went out of his way to actually look after us, got special food cooked for us, and then we did a small diversion to Nepal. Exactly. We sneaked into Nepal, great memory, and we said, let's go have Nepalese beer. And we had Nepalese beer.
And you have to remember that Bihar is dry, right? So the closest place for people in Farbisganj is to go to Nepal, cross over, and have their Gorkha super strong, whatever it's called.
I've heard that Gautam is into brewing, so yeah.
I do. So
I'm guessing
our first real break actually came on day 50 out of 54 days, because all the break days that we had planned were on working days, because we needed to kind of get a lot of our mind share on some of the piled up work that we were leaving behind to our colleagues at Brigadry, because Apul and Rajiv, without them this ride would not have been a success, right? And for us, it was important for us to kind of plan our breaks on weekdays. In Goa, which was 4 days before we hit Bangalore, it actually happened on a Sunday. And that was the first day that the whole team did not have any work-related stuff. So guess what we did? We basically hung out in Candolim and probably single-handedly maintained the ledger for Kingfisher for that one day. But it was a lot of interesting fun. A lot of bonding that happened the previous night at the dinner where all the collaborators were present. It tells you that despite all the challenges that we all faced together, all the little, bickering that we did here and there was a lot of joy and a sense of accomplishment that cannot be, questioned, right? So I think that's the success of this trip.
And great memories. I mean, Goa will leave great memories.
And I also want to call out, the support of our families. I think we never mention it. Our respective and respected wives. You need to check in with them every morning. For them to kind of just say, okay, yeah, like they say, a lot of my friends now call me Simran because of the famous movie thing, Jaz Simran Ji Le Apni Zindagi. For somebody to just say, go on your ride, I'm not going to see you for 2 months. It's just a WhatsApp check-in on a daily. Of course, you talk on video, etc. But they are constantly worried at home. But then, there's like 7 and 8 people.
That too on an EV which they're known. There's no testing, no nothing.
So there were like really busy WhatsApp groups where some family members were present with the rest of the collaborators. And it was a very colorful.
And they were also supporting us. Family members who had no reason to were actually going out of the way to actually help us ensure that things happened in the right. For example, we realized that we were not adequately equipped for -2 degree in the north. And for my wife to rummage through winter clothes, figure out what is the right stuff to send and make sure it reaches me in Dehradun. I mean, you're right. I mean, hats off. And not only that, to also the leadership team at Brigade, I mean, whether it was Nirupa, whether it was the chairman, Mr. Jayashankar, and the team at REAP, I mean, they just ensured that as far as possible, we could accomplish the goal that we sent out to. And colleges have now reached out and saying, listen, can we be part of what you guys are doing? And we said, we're happy to.
So last question for you all. So what are the similarities between motorcycling and startups? What do you feel that is?
Interesting question, Karan. First and foremost, nothing will go according to plan. But having said that, planning is the fundamental for starting anything. Okay? And I think the greatest lesson for us was that if there is purpose in what you do, whether it's motorcycling, and for us it was helping and encouraging students to become job creators, or a startup solving a great problem, the universe will open up to help you. And you need the support of anybody and everybody in the ecosystem, whether it's mentors, whether it's families, whether it's friends, whether it's unknown strangers who you could reach out to, government. I think it is important for you to bring them together. These were some of my learnings.
I think it's also about building expertise as you go along. See, when you go into a startup, that's also uncharted territory many times. You have no idea, right? What are you going to encounter on it? You could plan it till the cows come home, but you might not have any domain expertise many times. We've got in the startups that we mentor, we've got a couple of lawyers that are doing something in the world of retail, right? Now, they have no idea about what it is that they were going to be doing when they started this venture, but they've built that expertise in an accelerated fashion. I think with a long motorcycle ride, it's kind of similar, where especially for routes that you've never taken before, you might read all about it in blogs and people's YouTube channels, etc. But till you actually go there and figure out, like in Chilka, that no road exists and you got to get your damn bike on a road or on a ferry, you wouldn't know that, or the road conditions wherever you go. All that stuff is something that you discover as you go along, right? So yeah, I mean, familiarity and expertise that you have to build as you go along. I also want to kind of, end a little bit with a little bit of observation, right? Just like in a startup, you have to be kind and sometimes scathing to your own team members many times, because honesty about how things are going, feedback, all that is really important in a long ride like this as well, right? And I'm a committed motorcyclist. I also want to make sure that the one defining message that I want to kind of share with everybody who's listening in, and thank you for that, is when you are out on the road, please be nice to other people. Follow all road safety regulations that exist in the area, in the country that you're riding in, because that's the only way that you can return back home safely in one piece. So please follow all kinds of road safety rules.
Karan, in parting, I'll just add one more thing. Long ride, 54 days, 13,500 kilometers, very akin to a startup, long journey. Sometimes it gets so crazy. In fact, a kid in Jamshedpur asked us, what happens when you have self-doubt? Brilliant question coming from a 10th standard kid. And on this ride, many a time, we actually were worried, can we complete this ride? And we had moments of self-doubt where on 2 occasions, I remember we said, to hell with it, just let's give it up. Giving up is the easiest thing to do. But if you're resilient, if you have the backing of some great people, if you have great teamwork, we believe, and if you have a plan, doesn't matter the plan is not working, but if there's strong purpose and your mind can conquer the fatigue of the body and the mind can conquer the uncertainty of the future, I think your journey will become that much more successful. And we faltered at many times. At that time, get up, dust yourself, take your learnings, put it to use, and move ahead. Like we did with charging. First swapping, 1 hour. Second swapping, 7 minutes. Like we did with power supply, charge in bedrooms, charge in bathrooms, charge everywhere. So I think we Indians have the English word pivot in the Hindi word jugaad built into our DNA. We need to just be resilient and move ahead.
So thank you so much, John, and thank you so much, Gautam, for this lovely conversation we had on the whole journey of Bharatmala. Thank you so much, and thanks for watching Auto Story Slipstream. Please do join us for the next conversation.